adaptive survival behaviors, and every species, including ours, has at least two major motivations, which is to protect its young and to make more of itself, to make more young at some level. And then sometimes you're on there and like, this doesn't feel good, but I'm doing it anyway. There's also a whole aspect of pornography, which is that if people are pursuing pornography and they're not pursuing relationships, there is the potential that they reach their 20s and 30s and they are truly dysfunctional in terms of, look, every species has two major goals: protect the young and make more of itself.
Brace yourself for a heart-wrenching revelation as Huberman delves into the depths of human indulgence, unmasking the insidious nature of self-gratification, a venomous serpent that slithers through the neural pathways, leaving destruction and decay in its wake.
You imagine this high, but the high doesn't show up, and that's you're dopamine depleted. You need to take some time away from it and then come back and then you can enjoy it again. Now, with pornography, it's a slippery slope.
Witness the catastrophic consequences unfold as Huberman unveils the dark side of pleasure, painting a chilling portrait of neural devastation and cognitive decay, where the siren song of ecstasy leads to a perilous descent into a barren wasteland of shattered dreams.
There's an additional issue with pornography, which is not often discussed, which is that, remember, guys in particular, the brain is a learning prediction machine. And if, I'm not trying to say that all pornography is bad, but there are good data to support the idea that if your brain learns to be aroused by watching other people have sex, it is not necessarily going to carry over to the ability to get aroused when you're one-on-one with somebody else.
Embark on a harrowing journey into the depths of self-reflection as Huberman's words pierce through the fog of blissful ignorance, illuminating the tragic consequences of unchecked self-gratification where pleasure turns to poison, eroding the very foundation of your intellect.
And you think about what porn and masturbation, these things really are. I'm not calling them sinful. What I'm saying is they are potentially addictive, especially with the availability of pornography. So, beware, just everyone's different and people have to be careful about these circuitries. You really need to protect them. They are super valuable.
Brace yourself for the gut-wrenching revelation as Huberman's somber voice resonates with undeniable authority, painting a vivid picture of the neurological havoc wrought by the siren song of self-pleasure, a haunting melody that lures the unsuspecting into a labyrinth of shattered dreams and cognitive ruin.
I personally think that the availability of porn is a real detriment to the developing brain, especially to the developing brain. Yeah. Now, it sounds like you rescued the behavior, and it takes some discipline, right? I imagine, and it's one of those things that it's also anxiety-less compared to dating and relationships where people are vulnerable on both sides and have to negotiate things like, consent and timing and, and communication and all the things that are really hard to do, but are essential to do. That's key. So I think it's a serious issue. And because of the way that it taps into these very primitive systems, it's as serious in my mind as some of the other drugs of abuse, like the opioid crisis. And talked about cell phones. You ever notice that when you get on a phone and you're scrolling Instagram, it's like a lot of fun. Like, this stuff is cool. You're seeing people. And then sometimes you're on there and like, this doesn't feel good, but I'm doing it anyway. Yeah. I'm just doing it. That's exactly how people talk about their drug use. That's exactly how people talk about alcohol use. That's exactly how people talk about gambling. Yeah, I mean, in theory, all the things that we're talking about with could be superimposed onto food or could be superimposed onto real, right? That one also has to be cautious there, right? But the cycling back and forth between dopamine and low dopamine states, dopamine fasting as it were, but maybe just low dopamine states, these are natural rhythms that existed in the nervous system. We have to remember what the dopaminergic system is there for. I'll say it again, I wasn't consulted at the design phase, but we know as a generic form of motivation and pursuit, you can imagine the human or the animal that's hungry or thirsty. It needs energy to go pursue the thing. So the idea that you have to eat in order to get energy, that's true, but you need energy in order to get the thing to eat. So our nervous system has energy also, that's dopamine and epinephrine. Yes, we use glucose and glycogen, et cetera, when we're pursuing things, but the idea here is you're pursuing something and then either by smell or by sight, you think you're on the right track. So you go down that track and then, there it is. You get some berries or you get, let's get prehistoric about this, or you get to the prey and eat it. And then it gives you energy to continue this pursuit or to reproduce. I mean, there's a reason why humans and other animals seek out reproduction, is that every species, but certainly humans, have two innate desires built into them. Whether or not they decide to actualize this or not is the desire to protect young and make more of its own species. Every successful species does that. Even if people don't have children, in general, people care about children. I started getting a lot of questions, especially on YouTube, from young males about in masturbation. And this becomes very relevant here. We have to remember that this dopaminergic system is generalizable to many different behaviors, right? Academic pursuits, sports pursuits, relationship pursuits. But fundamentally, it was, again, I wasn't consulted at the design phase, but fundamentally it's tacked into the adaptive survival behaviors. And every species, including ours, has at least two major motivations, which is to protect its young and to make more of itself, to make more young at some level. People can opt out of that, but one of the absolutely pathologic situations for any animal or human is to be able to access repeated dopamine surges without effort or any pursuit that's self-directed or that's directed, I should say. So for instance, cocaine, a drug which potently increases dopamine, or methamphetamine, which potently increases methamphetamine, but doesn't require any sort of adaptive action pursuit except to acquire the drug and spend money on it. No sacrifice. So what ends up happening is the circuit that gets rewarded is only the drug-seeking behavior, and no other behavior will give the kind of potent dopamine release that cocaine or methamphetamine will, which is why they are so pernicious. Think about the young brain being significantly more plastic and willing to rewire than the adult brain. Absolutely, there's no question about it. It's hyperplastic.
Yeah.
And of course, it can rewire again, but you think about somebody who engages in a lot of watching, right? Watching porn. And that person is getting dopamine and testosterone increases by observing and not actually by engaging in human contact, okay? So that's concerning, right? And obviously the people vary, but it should come as no surprise that a lot of these people have trouble with romantic interactions when they do happen, right? Because their brain isn't conditioned to respond to those, right? And there's variation there, I'm sure. And these are private matters, so there aren't good data because there aren't laboratory experiments that you could do on this sort of thing that someone will probably do those experiments eventually. But also dopamine seeking is what triggers the increase in testosterone. But as we just talked about it, with repeated dopamine seeking or triggering of dopamine release, it starts getting diminished. So pretty soon that behavior is not causing the release of testosterone. Now people are just doing it compulsively to try and get some little droplet of dopamine out of their brain. So a lot of people don't realize that, but I think a lot of these public spaces have been kind of leaning towards it's the algorithm, when in fact there were some conscious choices to suppress certain kinds of information and amplify other kinds of information. That said, on Instagram, if you can't put hashtag, you try and put that in, you won't find it. Or if you do that in your post, it's going to get downregulated. Right. Certainly. Yeah. And you can kind of understand why, right? I mean, otherwise the entire thing would be filled with all sorts of and pseudo and so there's an etiquette of each of these places. I think what's surprising and what people are kind of like, going eyes wide about is the etiquette oftentimes leans in one direction or another in a way that has never been explicitly stated. Is states of deep sleep and any state where you're not doing duration path outcome. That goes without saying, right? The quickest way to peel somebody apart is to sleep deprive them for 2 or 3 nights. One night, you're probably fine.
Right.
As the world plunges into the depths of sleep-deprived chaos, Huberman unveils a trove of wisdom, a nocturnal symphony of knowledge that unlocks the elusive door to restful slumber, inviting us to partake in the transformative power of a good night's sleep and embrace the replenishment it brings.
If you're deeply asleep, well, then the calmness system is really tilted down. You could say that's a portion of the seesaw. This is all kind of obvious and dates back, 100 years or so, which isn't that long in the history of science, but we've known this sort of thing for a while.
Against the backdrop of a sleep-starved society, Huberman unravels the intricate tapestry of restful sleep, exposing the intricacies of our circadian rhythms and the delicate balance between biology and environment, offering us a chance to restore our weary souls and awaken to a world renewed.
The other thing is that many of the people waking up after 4 or 5 hours were supposed to go to bed earlier. Remember, melatonin puts you to sleep but doesn't keep you asleep. So many of these people might be going to bed at 11 o'clock, waking up at 3 or 4 a.m., going, oh, here I am again, when actually they need to go to bed at 9.
Amidst the haunting silence of sleepless nights, Huberman's revelations resonate like a lullaby of hope, guiding us through the nocturnal labyrinth of insomnia and nightmares, empowering us to reclaim our rightful place in the realm of dreams and awaken refreshed, ready to conquer the challenges that lie ahead.
That's kind of the top contour of it. But when one looks at the neuroscience, for instance, of sleep, you start to realize that, the amount of rapid eye movement sleep that you're going to get in any 90-minute bout of sleep, as your sleep is broken up into these 90-minute segments, more or less.
Within the twilight realm where dreams intertwine with reality, Huberman's wisdom unveils the mystical art of restful sleep, weaving a tapestry of rituals, routines, and mindfulness that lulls us into a peaceful slumber, allowing our weary bodies and troubled minds to find solace in the healing embrace of the night.
And elite performers like elite military, elite athletes, I'm sure you're familiar with this, they understand that the ability to toggle back and forth between these high alert, high attentional states and deep rest is not just the key to performing what you can already do, it's also the ability to get better over time.
Against the relentless onslaught of modern distractions that rob us of rest, Huberman's revelations stand as a bastion of serenity, urging us to reclaim the sanctity of sleep, surrender to the nocturnal embrace, and unlock the transformative power that lies within the depths of our dreams.
In the same way, being well rested when you sleep, your autonomic nervous system that adjusts states of alertness and focus and calm works better than when you're sleep deprived. So if you're sleeping better, you're going to focus better. So I always answer this way to a question like this, because the best thing that anyone can do for their mental health, physical health, and performance in athletic or cognitive endeavors or creative endeavors is to make sure that you're getting enough quality sleep. And it basically has you do 10 minutes of kind of like a body scan where you're focusing on different parts of your body and you're using breathing to relax yourself. It's some long exhale breathing. The beauty of this practice is twofold. First of all, it trains you to activate your so-called parasympathetic nervous system, the relaxation arm of the autonomic nervous system, teaches you to self-relax. Okay, so that's useful because most people don't know how to do that. It allows you to fall asleep faster. It allows you to stay asleep better. And the cool thing is, so this lab in Denmark showed that it replenishes levels of dopamine in this area of the brain called the basal ganglia, which are involved in motor commands. So when it resets the brain, so to speak, using very coarse language, but it kind of resets your brain. The fun thing for us in our lab was that we started to see that it puts the brain into states that are very similar to sleep, even though you're awake. So with all due respect to the great sleep researchers out there, I fundamentally disagree that you can't replace sleep that you've lost. First of all, there's no sleep bank. There's no like counter or timer. I think about it, and this came to me because you can imagine in like first responder communities, special operations communities, sleep is sometimes, it's not dictated, those guys are sometimes on the vampire shift, right? So you can't really negotiate with it that well. But having practices that allow you to access states of mind that then allow you to be in sharper mental and focus and physical output are powerful. Yoga Nidra is a good example one. And I'd be happy to send you guys a script that we could post someplace of the one that we use in our lab. It involves lying down, long exhale breathing. You want to direct just enough of your attention so that you keep somebody engaged. Now, there are situations in life, I should just mention, such as sleep deprivation or in particular, that tend to make this whole set of systems with prefrontal cortex and limbic stuff and ACC and insula kind of dysregulated. It makes it harder to manage. That goes without saying, right? The quickest way to peel somebody apart is to sleep deprive them for 2 or 3 nights. One night, you're probably fine.
Right.
So, all the basics of self-care, of good nutrition, social connection, sleep, exercise, sunlight, those still apply. I just want to mention that. I want to make sure I answer your question about gene expression and permanent changes, because I've failed to do that thus far. One of the things that is absolutely key about the dopamine system
is that it has a fast component. Dopamine is released, more adrenaline, aka epinephrine, can be released, and you can, this sort of upward spiral of energy and sort of success with the occasional drops, right? I mean, nobody succeeds in every task, right? Sometimes the phone rings or the doorbell rings and you fail. Goodness, you fail to clean the cup. You come home, like, are you going to crash into a puddle of tears? No, you just clean it then and then put it away, right? Of course. But there's a slow system associated with achieving wins, even small wins. And that slow system is in the form of hormonal control that then translates to gene control. So two hormones in particular, testosterone and estrogen, which are present in both men and women, males and females, of course, but to varying degrees, are both secreted when the dopamine system is activated. This has to do with the relationship between dopaminergic neurons and the pituitary gland, which releases gonadotropins and luteinizing hormones, which then stimulate the testes and the ovaries, et cetera, to release the so-called sex steroid hormones. The sex steroid hormones, testosterone and estrogen, of course, are involved in reproductive biology, but they are both vitally important, provided they are in the proper ratios, for motivational biology.
And if you do this for a few days in a row, what you find is you start dropping really close to sleep. Sometimes you even think you're asleep. But at the end, it says, okay, you can open your eyes. Some people can open their eyes. It's a little bit like hypnosis. And just to be clear, hypnosis is very powerful. I have a colleague, David Spiegel, in the Department of Psychiatry at Stanford, who's kind of world expert in clinical hypnosis. Similar, bringing people into a deep state of relaxation. I think everybody should have a 10-minute a day practice like this. It's also great if you wake up in the middle of the night and you can't fall back asleep. It can help you fall back asleep. So have a practice to get better at sleeping if you're not a great sleeper. The other things that I'm really a big fan of for sleep is, like, let's understand what wakes us up from sleep. The number one reason for waking up from sleep is you have to urinate. You have to go to the bathroom. That is because, and this isn't glamorous neuroscience, but it's factual. I teach neuroanatomy to medical students and graduate students. There is a direct nerve connection from the bladder to the brainstem, reticular activating system. So when the bladder is full, it makes you alert, wakes you up. So people should be tapering their water intake off later in the day.
What guarantees that process will be converted into literally the change in the connections between neurons, sometimes new neurons, but mostly the change in the strength of the connection, so that eventually you don't have to do duration path outcome, you can just be reflexive about it, is states of deep sleep and any state where you're not doing duration path outcome. So we know from two recent studies, some of this was done by my lab, but by other labs as well, in humans, which I think is important to distinguish between mouse and human where we can. A lot of the changes in these brain structures occurs after learning during deep sleep, in particular slow wave sleep. But it also occurs during periods of naps and shallow sleep, or even just periods where people deliberately decompress, where they're not focusing on any one thing in particular. So if we were going to kind of operationalize this process, it would be focus intensely, have an intense period of urgency, and then access the deepest rest you can where you're not thinking about anything, where space and time becomes very fluid. What this practice does is it teaches you to deliberately turn off your thinking and to relax your body.
This protocol relies on simple yet effective breathing patterns that induce profound relaxation by slowing down the heart rate.
Because it has this amazing ability to reset your energy levels and focus, whereas with meditation, many people find meditation hard.
The key to achieving this state of deep relaxation lies in shifting our focus from thoughts and stress and planning towards sensations. We can enter a profound state of relaxation by directing our attention to pure sensation.
I don't have any problem with buffering cortisol a little bit in the short term, so doing that for a week or two, but I wouldn't suggest that people suppress their cortisol long term unless there's a real clinical need to do that. Long term being longer than 2 weeks.
To begin the protocol, one can either sit or lie down. They can close their eyes and breathe normally, occasionally incorporating deep inhales and exhales through pursed lips.
There are several very good papers that were published in the last few years in the journal Cell Report showing that short naps and NSDR, I should say, has some good science to support it, accelerates neuroplasticity and learning.
especially if you take that nap within 4 to 6 hours after a very intense learning bout.
As the practitioner embarks on this journey, they imagine a metaphorical spotlight illuminating and relaxing different parts of their body, starting from the feet and gradually ascending towards the head.
But non-sleep deep rest is allowing your system to drop into states of real calm that allow you to get better at falling asleep later. And they can be very restorative for cognitive and motor function. There's at least one study out of Denmark that shows that the basal ganglia, which is an area of the brain that's involved in motor planning and action.
With each exhale, the practitioner envisions their body gently sinking into the surface that they're in contact with. As the spotlight dims and the breathing remains steady, the entire body sinks deeper into relaxation.
But those periods of deep rest allow you to consolidate the material much more quickly and more deeply. And then you mentioned that there's sometimes also a period in the afternoon. So definitely nourish, take care of your email, take care of your social connections. These are important things to be able to continue to do work.
It's essential to note that throughout the protocol, the practitioner maintains control over their nervous system. This is demonstrated by their ability to move and control various body parts. By honing in on sensations and filtering out sensory overload, the technique empowers practitioners to govern their own perception.
And really allowing the mind to enter one of these pseudo-sleep states. We know from work in my laboratory and work that I'm doing with David Spiegel's laboratory, as well as work from other labs, that state of shallow nap or shallow sleep done in waking allows the brain to, and the person, to get better at turning off their thoughts and falling asleep in the evening.
NSDR brilliantly harnesses the brain's power to elicit heightened states of alertness or deep relaxation. It showcases the brain's astonishing ability to influence our actions and our perceptions. With just 10 minutes of practice, anyone can unlock the potential to tap into their own innate capacity for relaxation and control over their nervous system.
One of the absolute most powerful tools that has come into my life in the last decade, that my lab works on, and there are people in psychiatry at Stanford that are also working on, is a practice that I call non-sleep deep rest, which is NSDR. Non-sleep deep rest is an umbrella term that admittedly I created to include things like Yoga Nidra, which actually doesn't involve any downward dogs or handstands or anything. Yoga Nidra is an ancient practice. There's some scripts online. Many of them are very good. You go on YouTube, you can find one of these scripts. They're totally cost-free. Put in headphones or put your phone next to you. You lie down, and it's a 10 to 30 minute script that walks you through a progressive relaxation of your nervous system. There's some breathing. Some of them have intentions and that kind of thing. For that reason, some friends of mine at a company called made a free resource. You can just look up NSDR, Nancy Sam dog robot, NSDR, and made for. And there's one there that removes the kind of intentions and other elements. What this practice does is it teaches you to deliberately turn off your thinking and to relax your body. And it makes it easier for people to access falling asleep and to more easily de-stress. Now, the question is when to do NSDR. You can do NSDR first thing in the morning if you ever wake up and you did not get enough sleep. I often wake up and feel, I didn't get enough sleep. I'll do a 30-minute NSDR and I come out of that feeling terrific, as if I got a full night's sleep. And I do this almost every day at some point. I might do it in the afternoon, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're having trouble falling back asleep, I highly recommend doing this, because even if it doesn't put you back to sleep, it's better than being awake and ruminating. And you're teaching yourself to fall back asleep.
Yeah, so non-sleep deep rest, NSDR, is an acronym that I coined because it encompasses a lot of practices that are not meditation per se, but that bring the brain and body into a state of relaxation and focus. So hypnosis is one variant of NSDR. There are other variants of NSDR. You can just look these up and you'll find them. And I think that they've caught on, and that the CEO of Google is an avid practitioner of NSDR, because it has this amazing ability to reset your energy levels and focus. Whereas with meditation, many people find meditation hard. And part of the reason they find it hard is that it requires focus. NSDR is a state which is very calm and relaxing. You don't have to work too hard. You're just listening to a script. Whereas most forms of meditation, not all, but most forms of meditation involve cranking up the activity in your prefrontal cortex. And trying to see your thoughts as opposed to thinking your thoughts, or focus on your breath, but then third personing yourself in some respect. And that's work. And so many people who meditate quite intensely feel more exhausted. Now, that doesn't mean that meditation doesn't have any utility, but it's distinctly different than NSDR. And I think that people are working, certainly the CEO of Google, I have to imagine, is working very hard and using his forebrain. If he's going to have 20 or 30 minutes to take a break, he should, and I think this is what he's doing, he should go out for a jog and not listen to anything and just kind of let his mind wander, or sit there in a chair and just zone out, or do NSDR. The problem is people are not that good at shifting states. We are all actually pretty good at, even people with severe ADHD, we did an episode about this, can become hyper-focused on things that they actually enjoy. NSDR is terrific at allowing people to learn to shift their state. And I actually would venture to argue that part of the value of meditation and exercise is the actual state that you get into in deep meditation or exercise. But just as valuable is the transition that you have to take yourself through from one state of mind to the other and then back again. When I look, David Goggins, he always seems to come up, but because he represents so many important things: drive, determination, override of emotional state, going from being a 300-pound plus person to a fit person through. He's never revealed anything substantial about what he ate or what he didn't eat. He basically says, like, listen, run a lot, eat less, right? Yeah. But what's remarkable is so much of what he says is about those transitions, about taking oneself from a state of, I don't want to scruffing oneself and like you're going to do it anyway. And then being able to carry that into regular life, so to speak. There's something about that sleep state that allows the brain to rewire. And most of the rewiring and neuroplasticity occurs during deep sleep, but also during these short sleep bouts that we call naps or NSDR. So I'm a huge fan. And yeah, my evening is basically just trying to take things down a notch. And everything's a little bit quieter, a little bit mellower. Occasionally I'll get a bout of focused writing in during that 1 hour peak or something of that sort. I'm just really trying to taper everything. I try not walk the dog at night, but sometimes the dog needs to walk. So it's not that I'm super strict about this. Occasionally I will go, take the dog out for a walk or watch a movie, but most of the time it's a progressive mellowing toward the evening. And then in the morning, we started pretty early today, and I'm up and at 'em, and all day long I'm going. One thing that's really, I should mention, if people are having an afternoon crash, one thing they can do to support themselves is to delay their morning caffeine for 90 to 120 minutes after waking. The longer you're awake, the more there's a buildup of a molecule in the brain and body called adenosine. And that's sort of a sleepiness molecule, if you will. Caffeine inhibits adenosine function. It does this through it basically parks in the receptor and prevents adenosine from working. So if you wake up in the morning and you're blitzing caffeine like I am this morning, but I've been up for a while, you're drinking caffeine straight out the gate. What happens is whatever residual adenosine was in your system is still floating around. You've blocked where it can bind to the adenosine receptor, so it's not making you sleepy.